The class reunion was halfway through. The class monitor pushed the door open and said joyfully, "You guys quickly see who has come." Following everyone's gaze. I paused my breath. After 3 years, Matthew seemed more mature. When he greeted someone, the corners of his eyes slightly curved upward, exuding an aura that had settled over time. It is said that he was recently named an outstanding young entrepreneur in the city, having already amassed a fortune of over 100 million at such a young age. While everyone was exchanging pleasantries, I continued to lower my head and reply to messages. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Matthew taking a seat in the empty spot diagonally across from me. His gaze lightly swept over me, not lingering for even a moment. I noticed that, because he was wearing a black trench coat, the bright white flakes on his shoulder were particularly striking. It turned out it was snowing outside. The phone kept vibrating. The girl sitting next to me couldn't help but tease, "Alice, is that your boyfriend? Checking up on you so closely?" I instinctively looked to the diagonal front. Matthew was still talking to someone else. The clouds were light and the wind gentle, as if he were oblivious. I shook my head with a smile and said, "No, it's my mom. She's urging me to go on a blind date next week." Everyone present is around 27 or 28 years old. Some have already started families and careers, while many, like me, are facing pressure from their parents to get married. A few girls empathized and started to complain, "My mom is urging me to go on blind dates as if she's trying to breed pigs. As long as the gender is right and both pigs look healthy, everything is fine." Alice, I'm not saying this to be harsh, but you really need to open your eyes. Most good men have already been consumed internally before they even hit the market. At that moment, a chubby boy suddenly slapped the table and stood up. "Matthew, do you remember the little follower who always chased after you?" His words were slurred, clearly a sign that he had drunk too much. Matthew said nothing. The man thought he hadn't remembered. "It's Alice, who bombarded you with more than a dozen love letters and confessed to you in front of the whole school at the high school graduation party." Because he had gained some weight, it took me a while to recognize that this person was our class's sports committee member. In the past, he had no other hobbies but to help others pair up in class, saying, "Since you two are both single, why not give it a try?" In an instant, everyone's gossiping gazes landed squarely on me and Matthew. 10 years have passed, and it turns out that everyone still remembers this matter, all looking forward to Matthew and me providing an explanation for this love story that has run through their youth. No matter what the final outcome of the story is. Matthew finally looked at me with a clear conscience. As our eyes met, he slowly raised his left hand and smiled without any emotion. "I got married." These 4 words were like thunder on a clear day. Everyone was astonished. "Matthew, when did you get married? Why didn't you inform the brothers when you had the wedding? You kept it a secret so well? I haven't seen you post any pictures of your wife on social media." Only I kept my head down and said nothing. I couldn't understand why Matthew was still wearing this ring. Clearly, we had divorced 3 years ago. Looking back now, it seems inevitable that Matthew and I would end up getting a divorce. Between us, there was no proposal, no wedding, and we didn't even take a single wedding photo. The year he graduated from university, his mother was diagnosed with cancer. I brought a 10-pound fruit basket to visit his mom at the hospital once again. As he was about to leave, he suddenly grabbed my hand outside the hospital room and said, "Alice, let's get married." A sudden sentence, like a pie falling from the sky, nearly knocked me out. Afraid that Matthew might change his mind in the next second, I eagerly agreed to him. The day Matthew and I got our marriage license was an ordinary weekend. There weren't many people at the Civil Affairs Bureau. The staff took photos of us. "Come on, the groom, move a little closer to the bride. Groom, don't have a serious face, smile like the bride, good." The red background photo on the marriage certificate became our first photo together. After the oath-taking ceremony, I skipped the identity of girlfriend and directly became Matthew's wife. At that time, Matthew was in the early stages of starting his business. In order not to be in a long-distance relationship with him, I gave up a decent teaching position at a private school in another province. Following his advice, I prepared to take the civil service exam in the province. Perhaps he knew he had wronged me. When we went to the jewelry store to buy the ring, Matthew promised me that once everything settled down, he would hold a wedding ceremony for us again. So I secretly resolved to be a considerate wife and thoughtfully chose a less expensive plain band ring. After all, what mattered more to me was not the material, but Matthew's genuine feelings for me. After getting married, we rented a 40-square-meter apartment together. Although the space wasn't large, our life together was quite sweet. We will stroll hand in hand through the supermarket on weekends like all young couples, embracing each other and falling into joy late at night. A year later, his mother passed away. He held me and cried for the first time, "Alice, I have no family left." Matthew's parents divorced early on. His mother, hoping for her son to succeed, has always had a strong desire to control him. Many people think Matthew is aloof, perhaps he is also longing to be loved deep down. So I comforted him again and again, telling him, "You still have me, I am also your family." Matthew began to stay at the company day and night, using high-intensity work to alleviate the pain of losing his loved ones. Due to irregular eating habits over a long period, he developed a stomach illness and was admitted to the hospital. Since then, I started bringing him lunch at their company. That was the first time I met Hannah. At that time, Matthew's career had already begun to show some promise. His startup team had successively recruited several like-minded alumni. Among them is Hannah, Matthew's direct senior in the computer science program. Hannah not only participated in many software design competitions during her studies, but also has a wealth of project experience. Matthew was very grateful that she resolutely resigned from the internet giant to join their team. I stood outside the door, holding the thermos, silently listening to them talk about topics I couldn't understand at all. The heated discussion abruptly came to a halt. The two finally reached a consensus on a certain issue. Matthew's eyes sparkled with admiration. "Not bad, let's go with your plan." I feel empty inside. I've never seen Matthew like this before. At that moment, Hannah pointed in my direction and said, "Matthew, your little girlfriend is here." He turned to look at me and corrected, "It's my wife." "Oh right, you see I always get it wrong. After all, there aren't many people like you who marry young." I awkwardly set down the thermos. Suddenly, I felt out of place here. As I was leaving, I heard Hannah ask Matthew, "Your wife doesn't look like she's in the same line of work. What does she do?" "Teacher." Matthew seems reluctant to talk about me in the workplace. Hannah probed further, "I have friends who teach at universities, maybe they are colleagues. Is she a high school teacher? Or a university teacher?" "She is still taking the civil service exam." "Oh, no wonder she has time to bring you food." "Don't worry, it's very easy to take the civil service exam these days." However, what seemed easy in Hannah's eyes, I failed at. Because I had been unable to find a job for a long time, my university counselor contacted me recently and said they could help me find work. However, because the work location is out of the province, Matthew firmly opposed my going. He lowered his gaze and flipped through the aptitude test papers scattered on the table. With a light laugh, as if trying to encourage me, he said, "Alice, this isn't difficult. Just put in a little more effort next time and you'll definitely pass." I bit my lip and couldn't say a word. Matthew seemed to have forgotten that I was not naturally bright. While others could understand a math problem after seeing it once, I needed to look at it 10 times to grasp it. I didn't have many other strengths, just the ability to persevere. Especially when it came to pursuing him. Matthew is a genius student, ranking first in his grade in every exam. I am a student with a talent in art, but I come in last in every exam. At first, to be closer to his school, I practiced diligently in the studio every day. My fingers were blistered from the paintbrushes, and I barely managed to get into the normal university next to his. His not difficult is based on whose standards, exactly? I began to dream frequently. In my dreams, the person standing next to Matthew is not me. Instead, it is Hannah, who is more in tune with him and evenly matched. I can never catch up to his footsteps. No matter how I call him, he never turns back. Perhaps noticing my low spirits these past few days, after the affair that day, Matthew held me close and said, "Wife, since I'm not busy during this time, let's have a wedding ceremony again. By the way, I'll take another half-month off to accompany you on a honeymoon to change your mood, how about that?" Just like that, I was easily coaxed by Matthew. However, organizing a wedding was not as simple as I had imagined. Even though we hired a wedding planning company for the venue setup, banquet menu, bridal bouquet, and so on, I couldn't help but worry. After all, this is the only wedding I'll have in my life. Just the design of the wedding candy box kept me up for several nights in a row, with even more dedication than when I was working on my graduation project. In the evening, I excitedly brought the freshly baked design draft to show Matthew. He quickly looked up from the computer and glanced, that's good, quite nice. I was tangled up with the draft, saying, I really can't choose between these two candy boxes. Honey, can you help me? This one has a larger capacity, and this one is more exquisite. Matthew didn't know who he was messaging. The corners of his eyes held a slight smile, but he didn't forget to reply to me, anything is fine. I suddenly didn't want to continue talking. Seeing me silent, Matthew closed the laptop, wrapped his arms around my waist, and pulled me onto his lap. Wife, where were we just now? I forced a smile and said, it's okay, you go ahead and be busy. It's really not a big deal. A week before the wedding, I went out as usual to deliver food to Matthew. Just as I got home, I received a call from the wedding planning company, saying that an important process for the wedding had changed unexpectedly, and I needed to choose one of two options as soon as possible. I couldn't make up my mind, and no one answered when I called Matthew. When I hurriedly arrived at their company entrance, I saw Matthew expressionlessly throwing the food I had given him into the trash can. Hannah stood by with her arms crossed, teasing him, You just don't know how to appreciate your blessings. Your wife treats you so well, and you're still not satisfied? He was complaining, but his tone was completely different. Do you think I want to waste food? It's just that discussing the project progress with you made the meal go cold and inedible. Alright, I understand what you mean. This meal is on me, just tell me what you want to eat. Matthew restored the thermos to its original state. His movements were clean and swift, as if he had done it countless times before. In the end, not knowing what he was thinking, he sighed and said, Sometimes she is just too good to me, and because of that, I feel a lot of pressure. In that moment, I seemed to smell the rancid stench of rotting food in the trash can. I felt a wave of nausea and fled in panic. Matthew called me several times in a row. In the past, no matter when or where, I would always answer his calls immediately. But this time, I just turned off my phone. By the time he rushed back home, he found me sitting on the carpet with swollen red eyes, surrounded by a pile of torn paper scraps. That was the love letter I wrote to Matthew in high school. A total of 18 letters. They carried all my overflowing affection. He recognized me and immediately stepped forward to stop me. Alice, what are you doing? And what's going on with the wedding? Why did you suddenly call to cancel the wedding planning company? I struggled desperately to break free from him. I picked up a complete love letter and tore it apart in front of him. It was like piercing through our seemingly intact, but actually already shattered relationship. I looked at him and said word by word, Perhaps to you, I'm no different from a little cat. When you need me, you casually call me over to play with me, and when you don't need me, you coldly leave me aside. You're unwilling to put any thought into me, you're not curious about what I'm thinking, what I say doesn't matter, and my emotions don't matter. Matthew, do you think marrying me is just your condescending charity? Matthew tightly grasped my wrist. Is it because of Hannah? Someone saw you come to find me this afternoon. I shook my head. It's not Hannah, there will be others. He didn't believe it and patiently explained to me, I already said that she and I are just ordinary colleagues. We haven't even been alone together in private. If you don't believe me, you can check my phone, look at my chat history, you can check anything. Seeing me shake my head continuously, he finally got angry. Alice, do you really not trust me? Do you have to make a fuss over this? I suddenly calmed down. Matthew, at this point, you still think I'm being unreasonable. Sometimes I wonder if we are really not suited for each other, and that everything is just me forcing it. The model algorithms and complex terms you talk about, I will never understand, and the comic movies I mention, you have no interest in at all. You don't like me touching your things without permission, and you don't like sharing your work life with me. If I say a word too many to one of your male colleagues, you can give me the cold shoulder all night. But Matthew, my heart is also made of flesh, it can feel hurt and sadness. Even so, I still try my best to be good to you because you said I am your only family in this world. But I walked 99 steps towards you, and you won't take that one step towards me. In fact, you are avoiding me, you are stepping back. My nose felt sour, and tears flowed out involuntarily. Matthew, I'm so tired. Over the years, I passionately chased after Matthew. It was he who reached out to me first. It was he who said he wanted to spend the rest of his life with me. I believed him. With no reservations, I offered my true heart. Yet, the selfless giving was like a stone sinking into the sea, despairing with not a trace of response. I began to feel confused, anxious about gains and losses. I became jealous and ugly. I became nothing like myself. I don't know what meaning this marriage still holds. Under Matthew's gaze, I slowly took off the ring. With all my strength, I forced myself to say those words, Matthew, let's get a divorce. His eyes were red, and his voice trembled a little. Are you sure? What a proud person Matthew is. He would naturally not bow to me, nor would he possibly try to keep me. I know that. I watched his gaze grow colder bit by bit. All right, you said it. Alice, since you want a divorce, then don't regret it. As the class reunion reached its later stages, a blizzard suddenly struck. The hot spring villa we rented happened to be on the mountain. Therefore, I can only change my plans and stay at the villa with everyone for one night, waiting for the wind and snow to lessen a bit tomorrow morning before we drive away. While soaking in the hot springs, the girls chatted idly. I had a crush on the sports committee member back in high school, and now, sigh, I can only say that time is a butcher's knife. Yeah, who would have thought that the most mischievous boy in our class would become a dad and turn out to be so composed? Only Matthew seems to have changed little before and after marriage. By the way, speaking of Matthew, he clearly wasn't on our reunion list. I asked the class monitor and found out he rushed over from a project kickoff meeting. It's really strange. Back in high school, Matthew always kept to himself, and I never saw him close enough to anyone in the class to come to a reunion like this. I inexplicably dialed that familiar number. In these 3 years, Matthew has sent me a total of 3 text messages. The first month after the divorce. You have a few pieces of clothing left in my wardrobe, are you coming to pick them up this weekend? The second year after the divorce, during the new year. I brought some things to visit my in-laws, and I'm now downstairs at your house. The third line only has 3 words, Alice. He probably regretted sending it as soon as he did, and what he wanted to say afterward remains unknown. I didn't reply to him at all. At the moment the divorce certificate was stamped with the steel seal, I had already decided to completely sever my feelings for him. If it weren't for this class reunion, Matthew and I would probably grow old without ever contacting each other. After soaking in the hot springs, I said goodbye to everyone in the lobby. They have other entertainment activities. I am preparing to go back to my room to sleep. In the distance, I saw Matthew standing in the corridor with his arms crossed, seemingly waiting for someone. I walked past him without glancing sideways. He called out to me, Alice. I ignored him and lowered my head to use the key card to open the door. The doorknob was being held down by someone. Matthew's tone finally showed some emotion. Alice, clarify for me, what is this blind date all about? I am increasingly confused by Matthew. It's been 3 years since the divorce, so what right does he have to interfere in my private life? At this time, the night owls among the classmates have agreed to go to the game room to play board games all night. I don't want to be seen, but Matthew forcibly grabbed my wrist and pulled me outside. Alice, let's talk. I couldn't break free, and a surge of unnamed anger rose in my heart. I snapped at him, there's nothing to talk about with you. The situation is exactly as you heard it. I'm not a child anymore, what's wrong with blind dates? He did not stop his movements, I do not allow it. I smiled and reminded him, Matthew, have you forgotten that we are already divorced? He didn't know which nerve he had touched, and he said angrily, I know, of course I know. We've known each other for so many years, do I not even have the right to ask a question? I finally shook him off. Before I could say anything, someone else jumped in first. Alice, Matthew, you guys aren't asleep yet? Perfect timing, the class monitor is still in the room talking to his wife. We need a few more people, want to join us for some fun? I didn't want to continue being entangled by Matthew, so I hurriedly agreed. Little did I know, he followed me relentlessly. Truth or Dare segment. A male classmate who isn't very familiar with me drew the chance to ask a question, and I just happened to be the one facing the punishment. He didn't make things difficult for me, symbolically chose truth, and asked me where I was working now. I finished speaking, and everyone was surprised. Wow, Alice, so you were a teacher at an art training institution first, and then you were recruited by a student's parent to work as an illustrator for children's picture books at a publishing house, right? That's like a complete career change, I really admire you. I absolutely hate my current job, but I don't have the courage to start over like you. The class flower who used to like Matthew said sarcastically, what's so admirable about this? It's really impressive when a man and a woman are pulling and tugging at each other in the middle of the night, but I can't do that anyway. Matthew and I came here together. With the class beauty embellishing the story like this, it's hard for everyone not to think more about it. Their gossiping gazes all turned towards me, as if saying, Matthew is already taken, how can Alice shamelessly lean towards him? I looked at Matthew and waited for him to explain the truth to everyone. But all he responded to was silence. Maybe it's because he's still angry, so he wants to punish me in this way. Or maybe in his opinion, marrying me is a very difficult thing to talk about and lose value. So he used to be unwilling to bring me into his circle, nor would he introduce his friends to me. I have no doubt that if I hadn't called him hubby in their company back then, he wouldn't have even publicly acknowledged our relationship to his colleagues. Later, the class monitor came over to liven up the atmosphere again. When we played a game that I had and you didn't, the mood gradually heated up. In order to avoid punishment for drinking, everyone loosened up when it was their turn to speak. My good friend once shared a video of her and my ex-boyfriend being affectionate. You all haven't experienced that, right? Drink up, drink up. What's the big deal? During my most lovesick year, I even paid for my ex-boyfriend and his girlfriend's rent. A muscular athlete quietly spoke up, saying something shocking, I have had sex with someone of the same sex. A quiet girl finally made the game a bit more normal, I have a daughter. Someone said, hey, Alice didn't drink, so she can't be unreasonable. It could have been brushed off. But suddenly, I didn't want to do that anymore. I looked at Matthew and said, word for word, in a vengeful tone, I wasn't being unreasonable. The entire venue fell silent in an instant. The cup in Matthew's hand fell to the ground and shattered. My goal has been achieved. This game ultimately ended with Matthew pulling me away on the spot. Everyone quickly guessed the gist of it. I was married to Matthew, got divorced, and after our divorce, I gave birth to a daughter. One after another, people sent me messages, so today Matthew came for you, huh? Is this a real-life version of running away with a child to mend a broken relationship? Alice, you better cherish this, you can't even find a man like Matthew nowadays, even with a lantern. I still trust my brother's character, he's gone this far for you, so just forgive him. Obviously, these people didn't just send it to me. Matthew raised his phone and said to me, it seems everyone is looking forward to us getting back together. I darkened the screen, then their expectations will be dashed. He effortlessly poured me a glass of water, smiled, and said, "Alice, don't be insincere. If you have no feelings for me, why did you give birth to this child?" A month after my divorce from Matthew, I found out I was pregnant. The doctor said that if I miscarry this child, it may be very difficult for my body to conceive again. After much consideration, I still decided to give birth. My parents were originally strongly opposed to me being a single mother. But just then, I received the good news that the old house in my urban village is about to be demolished. One more person means one more share of the house. Their attitude changed, and the child in my belly transformed into the little lucky star of the family. After my daughter was born, I named her Delisa. I hope she is confident and optimistic, with a clear vision for her future. Delisa is only 3 years old, yet she can already do addition and subtraction within 100. Her intellectual talent is indeed thanks to Matthew's influence. I said pragmatically, because I think your genes are quite good. Matthew's expression darkened a little. "So, you see me as a free sperm bank?" "It seems that makes sense." I nodded, as if to agree. He jumped up. "Good, very good, Alice, you're amazing." This was the last sentence Matthew said to me at the class reunion. I admit that I intentionally provoked him. I thought that since we had reached this point in our conversation, Matthew probably wouldn't come to bother me again. However, a week later, he appeared again downstairs at my house. Matthew glanced at the basket of vegetables I was carrying and said with a smile, "Didn't you say you were going on a blind date? Why didn't you go?" Seeing that I ignored him, he said, "I bought some toys for my daughter, and since the new year is approaching, I thought I would pay a visit to my father-in-law and mother-in-law." He looked up and said, "Your cousin came over so early? My home is on the 3rd floor." Following Matthew's gaze, I see a young boy playing with Delisa, stacking blocks under the red hollow window decorations, occasionally lifting her high, making her laugh continuously. Actually, Matthew has seen my cousin during the New Year celebrations before. Maybe he didn't pay much attention, which is why he mistook the person. I withdrew my gaze and seriously told him, "He's not my cousin, he's my boyfriend." Matthew's expression twisted for a moment. But soon, he scoffed, "Alice, your excuse is really pathetic. You're the one going on a blind date, and you're the one with a boyfriend. Do you think I would believe that? My boyfriend is real. Being urged to go on blind dates is also true. But I can't be bothered to explain it to him. If he doesn't believe it, so be it." I turned to leave, but he grabbed my arm, not letting me go. Neighbors passed by one after another, frequently turning back to look at us. I had no choice but to agree to take him upstairs. My parents were cooking in the kitchen, and it was Daniel who came out to open the door. He was wearing a white knitted sweater, and the breath of youthful masculinity came rushing at me. Glancing at Matthew behind me, his smile grew even brighter. "Sister, you're back?" Then, without regard for anyone else, kissed me. Matthew's face darkened on the spot. Daniel was definitely doing it on purpose. Because he immediately assumed the posture of a proper boyfriend and poured tea for Matthew. "I know you, you're her ex-husband." Delisa is playing with a ride-on toy in the living room. Matthew tried to regain some dignity for himself, picked up the rabbit plush toy from the shopping bag, and squatted down in front of her. "Delisa, I'm Daddy, come on, call Daddy." Delisa cried out, well, under his repeated urging, randomly hitting him with the ears of her rabbit doll. "Ugh, it's not you, ugh. Whoever is good to Mom, that's my dad." Matthew was beaten to a pulp. Clearly, Delisa hadn't used much strength, yet he sat on the ground as if all the air had been let out of him. Daniel, not one to shy away from trouble, picked up Delisa and, while coaxing her, asked, "Delisa, how about I be your daddy?" Delisa gradually stopped sobbing and said in a childish voice, "Okay." In the air, there seemed to be countless tiny sparks. As soon as these two people made eye contact, it crackled and popped. Before the atmosphere became more tense, I said to Matthew, "The daughter has finished watching, the things have been delivered, you can leave now." He glanced at Delisa, forcing his voice through gritted teeth, "Alice, are you so eager to drive me away, can't wait to be sweet with your little boyfriend?" At that moment, my mom came out of the kitchen. "It's the new year, Matthew, stay and have lunch with us." Matthew readily agreed. When I went to the bathroom, my mom pulled me away. Sure enough, she started to persuade me to get back together with Matthew. "Alice, you're still young. Listen to your mom, marriage requires mutual tolerance and understanding. You don't want someone like Matthew, but others are eager for him. You'll regret it in the future. Didn't you say that after Daniel's holiday, you're going abroad to study? Are you really going to have a long-distance relationship after that? Do you honestly think that with the age difference between you and him, plus a daughter, you can have a future? I see that Matthew is interested in getting back together with you, and I'm not pushing you to go on blind dates anymore. Think it over carefully, not just for yourself, but also for Delisa. Look, everyone, including my parents, thinks I'm being foolish. They don't understand why I have to divorce Matthew when he hasn't made any fundamental mistakes in our marriage. I don't understand why, when Matthew achieved success and turned back to ask me to reconcile, I stubbornly held on to my own views. In their eyes, Matthew is the smart, top student, a successful son-in-law, a compatible colleague, and a wealthy boss. In my life, he is a cold and selfish husband. Daniel is different. He is the first to let me experience another possibility of intimacy. It turns out that love can also be equal, healthy, and passionate. The first time I met Daniel was in a bookstore. Every weekend, I loved to hang out there, watching the little kids engrossed in my picture books, my heart filled with happiness. However, a big friend came that day. In the past, when I casually doodled, Matthew had told me more than once, "Alice, how old are you now? Why are you still so childish?" Therefore, I naturally feel a sense of shame about adults reading my children's picture books. But this boy in front of me seems to really like them. He even bought my entire set of picture books directly. Because of this, I remembered him. Later, he came to intern at our publishing house. I then learned that his name was Daniel, a senior majoring in English literature at Matthew's school. Because the topic of the graduation project is the translation of children's literature, he took the initiative to offer to be my assistant, helping to translate my picture book for distribution in overseas markets. Daniel seems to always understand some of my strange ideas. For example, the story of a rabbit without ears finding an egg. Or the story of a crocodile born into a duck family. One day he was reading my manuscript. Miss Brown Bear, who had been starved into a bear-like state, asked for directions everywhere to find the Honey Mountain in the bees' mouths. Mr. Cat told her that Honey Mountain was next to Milk Lake, Miss Dog told her it was near Bone Tower, and Aunt Crow said she had to cross Bread Bridge, and so on. He suddenly realized, so there really is no Honey Mountain. Miss Brown Bear was deceived. I bit my pen, my thoughts wandering freely. Perhaps it really exists, as long as she keeps climbing and climbing, all the way to the highest hill. The summer internship ended, and Daniel began to pursue me directly. Upon learning that I have a daughter, he did not back down, but said, "What I like is your interesting soul, regardless of age or any other identity." I already knew that Daniel was going abroad to study. So from the very beginning, I had no intention of being with this boy who is 5 years younger than me. Until he said he was willing to stay for me. I refused even more sternly. So he settled for a compromise, then let's be together until the winter break. Sister, I don't ask for too much, just give me 3 months. He said with a hint of bitterness, "You are my first love." It's hard to say the words of rejection. In fact, I know in my heart that I've long been moved by him. So I agreed to him. 3 months' time. Just enough for us to leave no regrets. After dinner, Mom and Dad took Delisa out for a walk. Daniel mysteriously pulled me into the bedroom and handed me a photo. "Sister, look at this, does it count as my exclusive wedding dress photo?" Half a month ago, a friend dragged me to a photo studio to take artistic photos. During a break, Daniel came to get me. He borrowed a veil from the neighboring studio and quietly pinned it in my hair. At that moment, I knew nothing. He called out to me, and at the moment I turned around, he pressed the shutter. I have never told Daniel about the details of my relationship with Matthew. Naturally, he wouldn't know that this is the first wedding photo of my life. The girl in the photo has light in her eyes, her smile bright and radiant. It turns out that love, this kind of thing, really escapes from the eyes even when you cover your mouth. In a moment of distraction, Daniel leaned against the corner of the table and awkwardly kissed me. Feeling my response, he accidentally bumped his knee against the chair. Matthew's voice suddenly rang out from outside the door. "Alice, what are you all doing?" The fervor of Daniel and me kissing in the room. The sound of knocking on the door outside is relentless. At this moment, I only have one thought: why hasn't Matthew left yet? It's so annoying. Later, the sound of Matthew knocking on the door became almost disturbing. Only then did Daniel let go of me. He unlocked the door and impatiently licked his lips. "My sister and I are in a serious relationship. What do you think we are doing?" Matthew looked at my swollen lips, and his eyes turned red as well. He pushed Daniel aside without a care and stormed into my bedroom. On the bookshelf directly in front of my door, there is a full row of English picture book proofs that just arrived. My name and Daniel's are written side by side in the most prominent position. He averted his gaze as if escaping, and then saw the photo on the table. He stared blankly at my dazzlingly bright smile in the picture for a long time before finally speaking. This is still the first time I've seen him so humble. "Alice, I heard your conversation with your mother-in-law. Your little boyfriend is about to go abroad, and Elisa is still young. She can't grow up in an environment lacking a father's love. I know you're still in the honeymoon phase and can't hear my words. That's fine, I can." He took a deep breath and said, as if he had made up his mind, "I can wait for you to break up." Daniel scoffed, "Wake up, she hasn't loved you for a long time. Even if you want to be the third party for love, she wouldn't care." Matthew didn't bother me again until after the new year. Just the day before yesterday, Daniel had already flown to the United States to study. Before parting, he kissed me at the airport, and I tasted his salty, bitter tears. He whispered softly in my ear, "Thank you, sister, for the 3 months you gave me. I am very happy. I'll tell you a secret, actually, I fell in love with you at first sight." My heart ached. I thought I had overestimated myself. I was far from being able to say goodbye to him as calmly as I had imagined. But I must pull myself together and prepare to go to Bologna, Italy, for the awards selection at the International Children's Book Fair. Little did I know that shortly after getting in the car, Matthew started calling me nonstop. When I got to the 10th call, I couldn't help but pick up and scold him, "Matthew, what the hell are you doing again?" He growled, "Alice, you can't leave, stop the car." I couldn't understand his nonsensical words. I glanced up at the rearview mirror and froze. Matthew was driving his black SUV, and he was actually crazily chasing my car. "Matthew, what are you doing? Are you crazy?" He slammed the steering wheel and overtook a small car. "I'm crazy, and you will stay for me." Before the words fell, a loud noise came from behind. The rearview mirror no longer reflected the shadow of the black SUV. I quickly asked the driver to pull over and park. Matthew indeed had an accident. Fortunately, the situation of the car crash was not serious. Matthew swerved sharply to avoid a pedestrian and crashed into the guardrail. I finished calling 120 for him and was ready to leave. Little did he know, he hurriedly pushed open the car door, his legs giving way as he knelt on the ground. His forehead was bleeding, yet he grabbed me tightly, his eyes filled with desperation, like a dog no one wanted. "Alice, I regret it, I've regretted it for a long time. Please, don't go with him, okay?" I just realized that Matthew seems to have misunderstood something. But he quickly fainted and was lifted onto a stretcher by the arriving ambulance. Of course, I still left. After all, this competition and award are crucial for me. A week after I returned to the country, out of humanitarianism, I symbolically visited him in the hospital. Matthew's leg is broken, and his head is wrapped in bandages. Sitting on the bed, he weakly asks me, "You're back? Where's your little boyfriend?" I said calmly, we broke up. He didn't hold the cup steadily, and water spilled onto the quilt, soaking a patch. Matthew lightly said oh, but his spirit instantly lifted, and the joy in the corners of his eyes and brows was impossible to hide. A couple of days later, I received a call from the nurse's station after work. Hello, is this Mr. Matthew's family member? The patient has rehabilitation scheduled for today and needs a family member to accompany him. Since then, I receive several similar calls every week. I've even learned to respond quickly with, okay, got it. I have seen Matthew's film, and logically speaking, his fracture shouldn't be serious, yet it hasn't healed for a long time. To this end, my mom specially stewed some pork bones for me to bring to him as a supplement. But my mom seems to have come to a conclusion and decided to take multiple approaches for my marriage. Recently, she has been planning to introduce me to the son of an old classmate. Upon learning that this blind date was a doctor and worked right next to the building where Matthew was hospitalized, I did not refuse. It just so happened that I had something I wanted to verify as well. I specifically chose the coffee shop downstairs from the hospital building as the blind date location. Dr. Song is 3 years older than me, and he had a wife who passed away due to complications during childbirth. For all these years, he has been unwilling to remarry, and it was only out of pressure from his parents that he reluctantly agreed to meet me. I finally felt at ease, no longer burdened by my thoughts. Not long after, Matthew's call came through. Alice, why didn't I see you in the rehabilitation department? Where have you been? I calmly took a sip of tea and said, I'm meeting someone for a blind date at the cafe downstairs, I'll be there later. Then opened the stopwatch timer on the phone. As the digital display rolled to 4 minutes and 32 seconds, Matthew appeared, panting and leaning on his cane. I had calculated in advance that for someone with mobility issues, this distance would take at least 10 minutes to walk. Matthew's fracture had indeed healed a long time ago, he had been pretending all along. I glared at him, raising the timer, and said sarcastically, wow, is a medical miracle happening? He suddenly clutched his stomach, his voice faint, Alice, I don't feel very well. I no longer believe his words, Matthew, the same trick is good enough once or twice. His lips turned pale as he reached out his hand towards me. But before he could touch me, he collapsed to the ground. Matthew has had a stomach problem for several years. I repeatedly remind him, but he still doesn't eat on time. Now it's good, I've finally developed stomach cancer. Fortunately, it's in the mid-stage, so it's not beyond the reach of medicine yet. After the surgical removal of part of the lesion, Matthew seemed to have aged significantly in an instant. When I went to see him, he was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling and murmuring, these days, it seems like I've suddenly understood a lot of things. My heart seems to have been sick for a long time. I always want to push you away again and again to validate your love, yet when you hold me tightly, I don't believe I deserve to be loved. So I retreat time and again, fall silent time and again, completely hurting you. As he spoke, he began to choke up, Alice, these years have been my fault, I was too wrong, this is all my retribution, it's what I deserve it, I should die. Even though Matthew had deeply hurt me before, at this moment, I did not feel the satisfaction of revenge. On the contrary, my heart felt like it was weighed down by a stone. I waved my hand and said, all right. Just focus on your treatment and don't think too much. Matthew pointed to the iron box under the bed, gesturing for me to open it and take a look. Inside were 18 love letters, all stiffly taped together with clear adhesive tape. Alice, I fixed them. I thought. I could fix them. I took out one of the letters. I held this tender yet fervent love up to the sunlight. It immediately became riddled with holes. Matthew, look, no matter how hard we try to restore something that has already been broken, there will inevitably be cracks. He sighed deeply, yes, you are right. Perhaps this is the first time Matthew realizes that there is really no possibility between us anymore. As I was leaving the hospital, I unexpectedly ran into an acquaintance. Hannah was pregnant, and her blonde-haired, blue-eyed husband was helping her down the stairs. She recognized me too. After saying a few words to her husband, she walked over to me. Hi, Alice, long time no see. 3 years have passed, and I can finally look her in the eyes and greet her naturally, no longer feeling that inexplicable sense of inferiority. It turned out that Hannah took the initiative to leave the company after my divorce from Matthew. Although Matthew didn't say anything, she could feel that there was blame in the way he looked at her. After all, on the day the conflict between Matthew and me erupted, Hannah was indeed discussing the project progress with Matthew, causing him to miss his meal time, and I caught him in the act of dumping his food. She herself felt bad about it, and later even felt so guilty about the matter that she went to see a psychologist. Alright, don't look at me with that guilty expression. If it weren't for this incident, I wouldn't have met my husband now. Seeing her say this, I felt even more embarrassed and apologized to her, saying that I had been jealous of her before. Oh, dear, don't say that. I hope you can choose a different word. What word? Appreciate. I would prefer you to say that you appreciate me very much. Talking about Matthew's recent situation, Hannah was not surprised at all. He is just being pretentious, a typical avoidant attachment personality caused by a lack of love in childhood, selfish, only caring about his own feelings, not caring about his partner's, and it's hard for him to compromise for his partner. In summary, you love him, he doesn't love you, you don't love him, and that's when he knows to love you. I can only say, it's a good thing you got out of that misery in time. In the end, we exchanged contact information. When my baby is born, don't forget to send him a set of your children's picture books. She waved goodbye to me, playfully winking, by the way, I want a signed edition. Matthew had undergone a year of postoperative chemotherapy and was basically healed. The doctor said that as long as he took care of himself and didn't engage in self-destructive behavior, he could live to be 70 or 80. But he seemed to have become addicted to self-harm. Before being discharged, he hesitantly said that he had undergone a minor surgery again. Later I found out that he went to get a vasectomy. By the way, he also found a lawyer early on to draft a will, leaving all his assets to me and our daughter. The last time we met, he held my hand and asked softly, Alice, is there really no possibility for us at all? But before I could say anything, he continued to speak to himself, forget it, don't say anything. At least leave me with some thoughts. 2 years later, in the publishing house. Everyone silently pressed their palms together, as if performing some strange ritual. I raised my head during a break from drawing and couldn't help but ask, what are you all doing? They said, the list for the Hans Christian Andersen Award is about to be announced. We're all so nervous, and only the person involved is so calm. Some even began to speak ironically, after all, it's the Nobel Prize of Children's Literature. Our country doesn't have many artists who can get nominated, so the hope is slim, it's the participation that matters, right? At that moment, a voice sounded. The results are out. Everyone was excited, how is it? How is it? Hurry up and tell us, don't keep us in suspense. Of course, it's the selected list. At that moment, it felt like a dream. Before I could jump up in excitement, everyone rushed over, a group of people cheering as they tossed me into the air. My dream when I was a child was very simple. While everyone else was fantasizing about becoming scientists or astronauts, I just wanted to bring happiness to every child. Perhaps I still have a long way to go, but I am sure I am already on the path. It's so late, and a delivery guy comes in holding a bouquet of flowers. Alice, who is Alice? Someone sent flowers, come and sign for them. Everyone cheered, the flower language of endless summer is about gathering and reunion. Alice, who gave this to you? I took the flowers, and a card fell out. I picked it up, and in a flamboyant script, it read, Congratulations to my brown bear miss, for finding her honey mountain. My heart started to race, and I hurriedly asked the delivery guy, where's the person who sent the flowers? Have they already left? The delivery guy said, not gone, not gone, the person is still waiting for you outside. I ran quickly outside. Someone stood in the night, opening their arms to me. As I threw myself into Daniel's arms, I remembered something Hannah had said to me. Alice, a good love can help a person grow. Congratulations, it seems you have already met the right one. The story ends.